Hi everyone. Today we have with us Usman here. Usman, I wanted to have Usman here for a very special reason because his story has had lots of ups and downs, which we are going to talk today. I had a very interesting time working with him last year. He had a very interesting background and a very good one as well, right? But there have been a few ups and downs, and we had that while we were working last year. And in this session, we are going to walk through this like step by step from his background to the schools he targeted, how he approached the entire NCR piece, the essays, the interviews, and ultimately how did that convert into an admit, right? So Osman, first of all, congratulations for your Singapore admit. And
Thank
why don't we just start at the very beginning? Why don't you just tell us a little bit about your background, both culturally speaking, academically speaking, professionally speaking? If you can just walk us through that.
yeah. No, thank you for the for inviting me to this. I guess you call it a webinar.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, but I think you're right. My story is probably interesting because I think I'm a good case study for INSEAD because I think I have the lowest GMAT probably
Yeah.
ever.
That's
And then I also got on the wait list and then got off the wait list without redoing the GMAT. So we'll
yeah.
talk about that. But my background, I think it's a very typical MBA background.
Mhm.
So I have a lot of international exposure. So I was born in Saudi Arabia,
Mhm.
grew up here as an expat, and I think that already like stands out for schools like INSEAD.
Yes.
And then I also I went to a school here in Saudi Arabia, which is called King Fahd University. It's the number one school in the Middle East and Africa, but I think outside of the region, maybe you might not be familiar with it. But it's just an engineering school. So I did engineering, but I started my career at a boutique consulting firm
Mhm.
uh, in the capital of Saudi, and then I stayed there for 2 years, um, working mainly, typical consulting projects with the government. And then I thought, let's do something a little more adventurous. So I got into the startup space,
Yes.
and that was, I think Nirvan knows the details of that story. Uh, but yeah, that was a roller coaster of a story, and I think a lot of my application was focused on that journey. Like a lot of the lessons I got from there were kind of positioned within the essays.
Mhm.
But unfortunately, during COVID, that didn't work out. So then I re-entered consulting, this time at Monitor Deloitte, which is part of Deloitte's strategy consulting arm.
Mhm.
So, I mean, again, like coming from consulting, Middle East, expat, it ticks a lot of boxes for schools like INSEAD, LBS, and maybe some other European schools. I think for the American schools, it probably isn't maybe that impressive, like coming from the Middle East.
Mhm.
I think their focus has never been on the Middle East. So I
Right.
think you need a much more stronger application, in my opinion, if you want to go to the US.
Mhm.
So that's background on me. And then Nirvan, actually, I met Nirvan through my friend, one of my close friends, who is also my co-founder. And he has a similar story to me. Grew up in Saudi. He was my co-founder in the startup. He worked in consulting a little bit. And I don't know how he met Nirvan, but somehow he did. And I think Nirvan, you got him into INSEAD and Kellogg as well, right?
Correct. Yeah.
He ended up going to Kellogg. Now he's working at Amazon
Mhm.
uh, in the US. And then he referred me to Nirvan, and then we connected. I think it was like late last year when I first reached out to you, and you were saying that let's connect again for like 2 or 3 months, right? So then
Yeah.
we started working. I think we started working in January, if I remember correctly.
Correct. You approached me, I think, in December, and I was, in the midst of some applications, I guess,
Right.
then. So I asked you to sort of postpone
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
So I mean, the reason I wanted to go for MBA, I think that's probably the most important. The why MBA is like the most important question for schools, right?
Right.
And the reason for me was I wanted to get out of consulting
Mhm.
and go to finance, specifically venture capital. And then we came to the school selection. So obviously for venture capital, I think the US is, from a market perspective, the best place to be.
Correct.
But if you're not a U.S. citizen, then it's quite hard to break into to VC or private equity, right? Even if you go to a really good school. So that's why maybe the U.S. was not like the best fit, but I still applied to 4 U.S. schools. I think it was Kellogg, Booth, was it Stanford and
Correct.
Sloan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that Harvard didn't have a round three, so I didn't go for it. And Wharton, so I reached out to Wharton, and they were saying that you shouldn't apply round three, like it's going to be hard. So I ignored Wharton as well.
Yeah.
So those 4 U.S. schools plus LBS and INSEAD, I think like that was my selection.
Correct.
That INSEAD was actually the first school which had. It was the first school I applied to, right? If you remember, Nirvan.
Yeah.
I think it was March. I remember the date. I think it was March 11
Yeah.
when I submitted. So the
That's right.
funny thing, yeah, I mean, the funny thing that happened was I was actually applying for the September intake.
Correct.
And then one day you messaged me saying you heard somehow that the September intake was not taking more, let's say, students from a particular background, and
Correct.
then you were like, let's apply in the January intake, and I think that was a brilliant move, to be honest.
That was, I
Um,
think, the deal. I think that sealed the deal. Honestly, if you would have applied then, that would have been really,
yeah, I think I wouldn't even be on this webinar if I applied for the September intake.
yes.
Uh, so anyway, we quickly changed. I think the application was more or less similar.
Yeah.
So we just changed it a bit and then applied for January. And then what's funny is like within 2 weeks before I even completed like other applications, INSEAD sent me a interview invite. I
Hmm.
remember, yeah, very quickly actually.
I guess.
We'll get into the specifics of the interviews later, but I mean that's my story so far. Yeah.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you so much for walking us through it. And by the way, Usman is being a little modest, right, as far as his professional experience is concerned. Even though I think his GMAT score, as you mentioned early on, was very low. I think somewhere in 500s or something. I don't remember. But his professional experience was really amazing. The startup he talked about, he had done some spectacular work in that. I remember when I was working with your colleague Faizan, and he was walking me through what they had done in the startups in the details. I was quite impressed, right? So that was quite something that you had achieved with that. And I think the overall profile had a huge role with how INSEAD perceived your
Mhm.
application, right? Okay, so I think you've answered, in terms of how we started, how you looked at INSEAD and all that. I just want to understand a bit more in detail about the INSEAD piece, right? Because you had applied to most of the schools in US, and then you looked at Singapore, and you applied to, let's say, just INSEAD. Was there a reason why you looked only at one school in Singapore at INSEAD, or did you consider applying to, let's say, NUS or other good
Mm.
schools in Singapore as well?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the school brand is more important than
Mhm.
the location.
Okay.
So if you notice, the schools I applied to, and even the long list of schools I had were, M7 plus the two in Europe, right?
Correct.
So for me, it was more about the school and not location. I think Singapore has some other options like in US, right?
Right.
And I think there's maybe one more. I can't remember the name, but
Yeah.
yeah, it has good options. But I think even when I applied to NCI, I didn't specify. I think which campus I
Mhm.
was more interested in,
Okay.
and they assigned me Singapore without even asking. So I'll talk about that later. But like for me, yeah, it was more about the school than location.
Got it. Got it. But did I mean your post MBA goes mostly to return to the Middle East, or are you planning to work in Singapore now after your MBA?
Honestly, I would like to explore Singapore
Hmm.
more. I've heard it's quite challenging. So from the interviews I've had with the INSEAD alumni, they told me that and other people who have worked in Singapore, they said it's hard to get jobs in Singapore if you're not from Singapore.
Hmm.
Um, so there's a challenge there, but I think with INSEAD, the more popular options are Dubai, um, or even London, actually. So London's a bit easier to obtain visas, right?
Correct.
for work. So those are some options. But yes, Singapore is definitely on my mind as well.
Got it. Got it. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so Usman, let's now deep dive into the application, sort of
Yeah.
phase as such, because that is where I have lots of questions, and I think people would be interested in terms of how you approached. So let's first start with what did you find the most challenging piece across the application journey, like be it the GMAT or working on your goals or the essays or the interviews. What was the most challenging piece for you?
Um, I think the definitely GMAT. Definitely GMAT. I think the GMAT itself is not that hard.
Yeah.
The hard part is just making time for it.
Yeah.
And I, unfortunately, if you're familiar with consulting, it
Hmm.
doesn't give you the most time, right, or energy at the end of the day to
Right.
study. So for me, that was particularly hard. So I mean, I had a score of 545 GMAT Classic. GMAT Focus, the
Yes.
new one, yeah, which is equal to 580
The old
on
one.
the yeah. I'm pretty sure I'm the lowest in the whole class out of
I
1,000
think so too. Yeah. That's it to be true.
And for INSEAD, if you hear the stories, they're pretty particular about having a high GMAT score.
Correct.
Uh, they usually never go below like 650 or 640. Right?
Yeah.
But I applied anyway. I was pretty confident. I remember on a call, you were analyzing my profile and you were like, why don't you take it again? And I was like, I don't have time. So, but I was confident enough in my overall profile that I could get in with a low score. But I think INSEAD is, I mean, I feel like they look at a lot of things actually,
Hmm.
especially your international experience.
Hmm.
Even in interviews, they ask you a lot of questions about where
Hmm.
you worked, who are the people you worked with, and stuff like that, right? Um, and then, being, I think I had a big advantage that I was in consulting and I was at a one loan firm, which they are familiar with.
Hmm.
And I was also in the Middle East, which is now a big target for them. So like
Correct.
I checked a lot of boxes,
Hmm.
and I think that was the only reason they still considered me. I think,
Yeah.
um, yeah, but
Got it. Got it. No, I think, yeah, I mean, the overall profile had a lot to do. I mean, of course, GMAT was more of, holding you back rather than sort of pushing you in. And
yeah.
despite of that, I think the profile had some amazing points, which sort of clicked for INSEAD. So let's look at the application piece. Okay, I want to walk through each of the sections individually, right? And you can go into as much detail as you remember because it has been
Mm.
a long time now. But whatever tips and insights you can share about these, I think that would be really grateful. So let's first start with the essays itself. Okay, how did you really approach the INSEAD essays? Did you have a thought process about this is something that I want to showcase, or this is something that I want to maybe let's say not showcase? What was the entire approach for the essays?
Yeah, so I think I was actually looking at I was thinking, what would happen if I did essays on my own,
Right.
right, without your help. And honestly, honestly, it would have been like I don't think I would get in because I would just write some unstructured random piece. But I think working with you, it was like firstly much more structured. Secondly, you ask questions that are. I remember you started with this exercise which had like a question about why you want to do MBA and then what's your goal long term, short term, right? And
Yeah.
then all of those questions like bring your story together, right?
Correct.
And yeah, and basically the why MBA is like the most important piece in all your essays. And I think the way you kind of uh, went on this little journey with me, like to figure out what the story is, I think that was really like helpful.
Hmm.
Um, but I think the essays you have a bit of a because I had to write the essays and then I believe you tweaked it, right?
Correct.
So, I mean, you have to be a little bit creative in how to start the essay. I think starting was always like the hard part. Um,
Correct.
I remember the first essay I wrote. I think, I mean, from the first essay I wrote until the last submission, it was completely different, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because like you ask these questions, which I would never think of, by the way. So you
Right.
bring that lens of the, you know, the MBA school itself and what they're looking for,
Mhm.
um, which I wouldn't have done it myself. So I think that was like a big difference. But essays were challenging. I think the particularly I remember some of the U.S. schools were a bit vague
Mhm.
about essays, especially Sloan
Correct.
and Stanford. Right? I think they're a bit like their essays are a bit like very open-ended questions. So
Correct.
it's hard to really bring out a very solid story. Especially Sloan. I think that was the most strange application I've done. Yeah,
Yes.
very abstract, you know. and but I think yeah, the main thing with the essays is like it really needs to come back to why you're doing the MBA. I think that's the most important thing. And actually, I spoke to a LBS interviewer
Okay.
recently who actually showed me his sheet
Mhm.
of notes he takes during the interview, and he showed me one of the notes, right? And the most important thing was why MBA, right? And if that doesn't add up, you're out, right?
Correct.
And this guy, he did MBA from LBS himself. He
Mhm.
had he had 770 GMAT,
Okay.
770 GMAT, CFA, worked in Morgan Stanley, U.S. citizen, got rejected by Stanford.
Yeah.
Because in his Stanford essays, he wrote he wants to be like a market analyst in some place.
Mhm.
Stanford was like, this is not the place for you, right? Like you're doing MBA from the wrong place, so we're not going to accept you despite your amazing profile. So again, the essays really need to come back to the why MBA part.
Got it. Got it. And did you? I mean, there are tons of different essay questions, right? And they are
Yeah.
asking about your professional journey. They are asking about sometimes about the achievements and all that. Did you focus more on the professional piece that you had, or did you focus more on maybe some extracurriculars that you did, or maybe you focus more on the global experience that you had? How did you really look at the essays? Where was the focus at?
If I recall correctly, it was definitely the professional experience.
Hmm.
And lucky for me, I had a lot to talk about.
Hmm.
Uh, for me, it was professional, but I think you have to somehow weave in the international experience and the extracurricular. But I think it was like small portions, right?
Right.
Um, yeah, it's more about the professional journey, why you started in consulting, and then why do
Got
you
it.
want to move to venture? Yeah.
Got it. And in your talks with, you touched about it a little bit in the start, but in your talks with, let's say, now with INSEAD alums and maybe with the INSEAD admissions team and all, do you think they're looking at any particular qualities as such inside the essays for their students?
Yes. So actually, in one of my interviews, uh, the guy was saying that he read my essays and he said, "You're saying everything they want to hear," but he was saying in the interview when I told him in detail so many stories, he
Right.
was saying like where are those stories in the essay?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're just telling me what I want to hear, but
Hmm.
there could be a lot more based on what I told him in the interview itself.
Got it.
So I think they're looking for something unique. Doesn't have to be like cookie cutter, um, but they're also definitely looking for a lot of, let's say, diversity and what do you call it? Inclusion, diversity, inclusion.
DEIPs. Yeah.
Yeah, they're looking for that quite a lot. They're definitely looking for. I think in the essays they would probably want to see like like, teamwork, collaboration,
Hmm.
because they ask a lot about that in the interviews.
Hmm.
So things like that, the soft skills, I think really need to come out in
Okay.
the essays. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. Perfect. Okay, so I'm moving on from the essays, guys. If you have any questions on the essays, anything specific, feel free to type your questions in. I'll sort of take that in right now. But okay, moving on to the other parts of the application. Specifically, let's go to the letter of recommendation. Okay, how
Mm.
did you choose your recommender, and what was really important there, as such that you would like to share that this is something that people should note when they are doing the LORs.
Yeah. So the letter of recommendation, there were two for INSEAD, right? Both of them I got from colleagues who were my managers. so like one level above me. We worked for, more than 6 months together at least.
Okay.
But also something, I chose them because they're good at writing as
Mm.
well, right? I know some people cannot like articulate properly in English, so I made sure I chose guys who I know they can write well. So that's also something you should keep in mind. And also one more thing, lucky enough for me, I worked with one guy who was an INSEAD MBA alumni. And
Mhm.
in the recommendation letter, they asked them if you're an alumni.
Mm.
That helps a lot if they check that box, right?
Okay.
So for me, I got that as well. So I think if you were lucky enough to work with some INSEAD alumni, you should definitely get the recommendation.
But they were still your manager, right? They were your manager
Yes,
and NCR.
yes, yes, yeah.
Got it. Got it. Perfect. Moving on to the resume piece, right? Any tips at all there? I don't want to deep dive too much into resume because it's more technical than anything else. But if you have any tips on how you really approach the resume for INSEAD or what are they looking for in the resume piece?
Yeah, I mean, you're the expert at resumes. I remember how you edited my resume. I actually thought it wouldn't take a lot of effort, but it took a lot of effort. Um, I think in the resume, you need to keep a good balance between not just like the outcome of your work or the responsibility of your work, but you need to show like if you manage people, right? Try to specify how many teammates you managed.
Hmm.
Um, Try to quantify the size of the projects and how big the responsibility was. You should definitely show that you managed like multiple stakeholders. Uh, if you're working in consulting, I guess that's a bit easier to show. And then you should definitely show maybe if you worked in different geographies, right? That would stand out. And I think you need to like you need to keep all of that, and then on top of that, I think you should also show the extracurricular activities that you've
Correct.
done. So it's not just about the job, right?
Hmm.
You need to show some kind of interest and initiative outside of work, which is a big piece. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. Okay, so let me now jump straight to the part that I am really excited about. Okay, which is interviews. So you told us that as soon as you submitted, within 2 weeks, I think you got an interview call. Tell us what
Yeah.
happened then, right? Who were you paired with in terms of did it happen online? Did it happen in person? How was it? How did you prepare for it? Just walk us through everything.
Yeah. So I mean, the interview invite, basically they send you an email saying you should reach out to these two people,
Hmm.
and so there are two interviews. Both are like 1 hour, could extend to 1 hour 30 minutes
Hmm.
each. Um, and the one was online. The second was in person here in Saudi. So if they can match you with someone in your country, they will do that, right? And I think the in-person interviews are actually much more easier than the online one, right? So anyway, I scheduled both interviews. So there was a lady from Belgium. The second one was a guy from, he was Saudi. So the first interview was about an hour, 15 minutes. And the first thing I have to say is that both interviews are very different in
Okay.
terms of like the questions, the way they were questioning was totally different. I don't know if that was planned
Hmm.
or it's just like how somehow it happened like that. I'm not sure.
Hmm.
But the first interview was, I would say, quite a bit more challenging. Um, but the questions you would expect are pretty much what you get.
Okay.
Maybe you might get one or two curveballs, like random questions, and I'll tell you which ones threw me off a bit. But the typical starting point is always the same. They'll say like, you know, why MBA, why INSEAD, do you have preferences for campus, like,
Hmm.
tell me about a time when you led a team or managed someone, or if you had a conflict, how would you resolve it? The typical behavioral questions. Lucky for me, there are also questions that are similar to the consulting interviews. So I was very like, you know, I was very like accustomed to this, right? So I didn't have to prep too much. I remember we did one session. Uh,
Yeah.
Yeah,
True.
I think my answers were okay. Um, but the questions that kind of threw me off a bit, I remember in the first interview, she asked me, uh, what would you do to promote DEI, within INSEAD?
Right.
And I didn't have a very clear answer to that. So that's something you should definitely think about, especially for INSEAD, because I think they're more focused on the international piece.
Hmm.
Uh, Also think about another question, which was, how would you contribute to, the campus community, right?
Right.
So think about those two questions. And then, but the main thing they're looking for in an interview, I know for a fact, is why MBA,
Right.
right? So in the second, and that story needs to be like crystal clear.
Hmm.
Uh, in the first interview, she was even asking me like, okay, you want to go to venture capital? Where would you go, right? If I
Hmm.
said Singapore, she might say like, but you're not Singaporean, it's hard for you, right? So maybe it doesn't make sense for you to do MBA in NCL. But I was a bit like open ended. I was like, I'm looking at London, Dubai.
Hmm.
So she was like, okay, like that makes sense. Uh, and then in the second interview was completely different. So the first one was more like behavioral team questions, inclusion, diversity. Second one was completely different. He came, we met at a cafe.
Hmm.
It was quite informal, very friendly. But he came and he was hammering on the questions one after another. As
Okay.
soon as we sat down, he was like, he looked at my resume. Why
Hmm.
did you choose this school? Why did you study here? Why did you choose this major?
Hmm.
Like a lot of why questions, like why, all the
Right.
way back from college, right? Why didn't you apply to US? Why didn't you apply LBS if you want to go to venture capital? It's a better school, right? Um, so like all those why questions, you need to think of, right?
Hmm.
So you should definitely practice why you did this major, why you went to this school, why you want to go to INSEAD, why not US. So all of these things you need to think of. Um, and then also in the second interview, I think he was like, looking at your profile,
Hmm.
you don't really need an MBA to go to INSEAD. Sorry,
Okay.
to go to venture
Yes.
capital. And he's right, actually. I could actually go to venture capital without doing an MBA.
Correct.
And then I was like, yeah, but I want to go more international, right? And then he got convinced. He's like, okay, fine. Like, if you want to go international out of the Middle East, you probably need an MBA, right? So think of those reasons. I mean, I don't know who's on the call and what your story is, but you definitely need to think about why you're choosing an industry, and if you really need an MBA, like it needs to be very convincing. So that was my experience.
Yeah, I think the story needs to be really solid in
Yeah,
terms of why you are doing MBA, why you're choosing that school, and I think that's really important as well. I remember, me freaking out more when you said that we'll only do one session and then you're going for the interview. I'm like, let's do more, but I think you were also occupied, and we had the interviews also very soon after the call. So
yeah,
that
yes,
that
yeah.
was definitely there. Tell me, you also, I think you also did LBS interviews, right? How were
Yes,
they
I did.
different from the INSEAD ones, or were they different?
Um, a little bit different, yes, for sure. I think LBS interview. I mean, LBS overall has a much more rigorous process. Like they make you do a few more extra steps, I think, along the way. Um, but the interview was they pair you with someone who's in an industry that you want to get in, right?
Okay.
So they paired me with I remember he was an Indian guy working in finance
Okay.
uh, in Abu Dhabi, and the interview was super friendly online. There's only one interview,
Okay.
about an hour and 20 minutes. I think the questions were exactly the same as the INSEAD. Why this, why that.
Okay.
A lot of whys. Again, he started with, why did you study engineering? Why did you choose this school? But in the end, I think he also said, where else did you apply? And I told him I applied to INSEAD. Uh, then he was like, why not US? You know, like, and so like you need to be prepared for
These questions
these
as well.
questions, yeah, because I mean, why not US is actually a great question, right?
Right.
But for me, like, you know, LBS, first of all, one of the best places to be if you want to be in finance, right? And
Yeah.
it's easier for expats than the US. So like, there's reasons like that you need to think of. Um, but in the end, they also give you a little case.
Hmm.
And I'll tell you what my case was. I remember it was what are the pros and cons of tariffs? That was the case he gave me.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if they're repeating that case with everyone, but
Yeah.
it seems like that's the big topic these days, right? So it makes sense. Makes sense. Give you like a minute to prepare. They don't really follow up a lot on the case. They just hear your answer and then that's it, right? So I mean, it was a simple case for me, just like a few minutes.
Hmm.
In the end, I did not get into LBS. I think, and I spoke to this LBS another interviewer
Okay.
who I spoke about, who was rejected by Stanford, right? He I told him about my profile, and by the way, for LBS I went overboard. I got 2 recommendations after the recommendation letter,
Yeah.
right?
From
My
LBS, right?
from LBS alumni, from the alumni network head, like from another guy who worked in BCG. He wrote a letter, and then and I know a lot of alumni, so like I was actually surprised they interviewed me with my GMAT score. That's the first thing.
That's
But then later I realized, some guy told me that they expect you to update your score
yeah.
if you're applying with a low score, right? You still have time even after the interview is done. There's
Correct.
like almost a month, like, before a decision is made.
Hmm.
So you have time to like update your score, and they will accept and update the score. So if they interviewed you with a low score, just assume that they're expecting you to send an updated score. So
Right.
that's the trick with LBS. I don't know if INSEAD does that. I guess they do.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So yeah, that was my LBS experience.
Got it. Got it. No, I think it's important to sort of. I mean, two major takeaways from this was one. I think it helps if you ask alums to sort of send in that recommendation. It
Yeah.
definitely helps. I mean, it's not a major help, but it acts as a deal breaker for sure, right? And I think the GMAT piece is also important because a lot of people think that once they've submitted the application, that's it, and they can't really update the score later. But I think you can. But I mean, of course, when you send, that score is important. Otherwise, the schools will always take the decision, whether or not you will send an updated score to them. So okay, so after the interviews are done, right? I think there were 2 interviews, maybe within a week of it, each other. I guess not a big
Yeah.
distance.
Yeah. Within a week. Yeah.
Okay, what happened after that?
So after the interviews, I just informed my admissions contact at
Mhm.
INSEAD that the interviews are done, and then it was just like a waiting game, right? So I think maybe a month or so later, uh,
Okay.
I think the decision dates are given, right, for INSEAD.
Hmm.
They Yeah. So I mean, I was not expecting. I was actually expecting to get into INSEAD, right? But then they sent me this waitlist email, and I was quite surprised. Uh, and I hear they send this before sending out the admission acceptance letters, right? So maybe like 2 days before.
Hmm.
Um, and I also hear that INSEAD builds a pretty big wait list. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but I hear that because I think they don't want last minute dropouts, right? And so the first thing I did when I hear about the wait list is I messaged you actually, and I was like, "What should I do now?" And then you told me, I think, a few things I can do. I'll tell you exactly what I did. But first of all, they asked you if you want to be on the wait list, so I accepted immediately. And I think this was like in May, maybe something like that,
Hmm.
around that May or June, um, maybe in May actually. And then so what happened was you told me that I can, send reference letters. I can retake the GMAT, maybe talk about some other achievements, right?
Hmm.
So the first thing I did was I actually, there's a partner who works at Deloitte. He's a INSEAD alumni. I told him write me a reference letter, a support letter. Actually, that's what it's called, to the admissions team.
He's not the
And so
same guy as the one you got your LOR from.
no,
He's
no,
a different
another
guy.
guy. He's a
Okay,
different guy. Yeah. Uh, I mean, I could have done that, but I think that's not as strong, right?
correct.
Yeah. So I got another guy to do it. He wrote the email and to the admissions dean actually. So she acknowledged it, but she just acknowledged it. She didn't say anything, right?
Right.
Basically, what they do is they add it to your file,
Correct.
and that's basically it. But what happened was like I was like, okay, like what else can I do? So I started preparing for the GMAT, and actually I studied like 2 months. Uh, I managed to improve my score a little bit, but it wasn't enough to like send them back an updated score.
Okay.
So in between that whole GMAT studying process, I also luckily got promoted at my job.
Hmm.
So what I did was I informed the admissions team like, hey, I got promoted to manager, and at first they didn't respond. Okay,
Okay.
like like weeks go by, nothing happens, and then I'm like, okay, like maybe they missed the email. Let me just follow up. I followed up. I wrote, can you? I actually didn't follow up on the email. I just wrote, can you provide any guidance on the wait list?
Hmm.
That's what I wrote. She responded within a few days saying, thank you for the previous update. We added it to your file. And then I also told her in the email that I'm preparing for the GMAT again.
Hmm.
And she said, okay, send us your GMAT once you're done, right?
Okay.
And literally 2 weeks later, I got the acceptance email. So without even submitting the GMAT, I studied like 2 months for nothing. Uh, yeah, I was studying a lot actually. So I mean, whatever, it worked out. So yeah, I got the acceptance out of the blue, and then I said, okay, no need for the GMAT.
Hmm.
Uh, and then yeah, I can talk about the if you want the process of once you get in, what happens, right? Because there's a lot that happens.
No, I want you to get in, but I just want to understand the chronology, the time sequence also. So you applied in March, right? That was when you submitted your application.
Yeah, yeah.
The interviews were in April, I guess, or March end.
Yes. March and beginning April. Yeah.
Okay. And then when did you receive the waitlist update? I think May.
I think it was May. Yeah, it was in May.
Okay. And how frequently did you share these updates? I think you mentioned there was a recommendation that you sent, and then
So recommendation I sent maybe within 2 weeks after that. So probably in June, early June.
okay,
And then time goes by, nothing happens in July. Actually, in June, I also sent them the promotion
okay,
update.
okay.
Uh, but then June, July, nothing happens. Early August, I follow up and saying, planning to take GMAT.
Mhm.
Do you have any advice? Like, uh, she said, we'll add it to your file. Maybe 2 weeks later, around August, I think mid August, I get in. I get into INSEAD. Yeah, that's
Got
what
it.
happened. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. And what did you get any scholarship offer from NCR? Did that happen?
No, actually, I applied to one, which was a fund for entrepreneurship, but I didn't get it. I think because maybe now it's like getting late
Hmm.
for the January. Yeah, because I got off the wait list, right? So many people got in already. Like,
Yeah.
I probably missed out on the scholarship. Yeah, but I think also with the scholarship, it depends on your nationality a lot as well,
Mm-hmm.
because many scholarships are for particular countries, right? I think for India, they have quite a few options. Europeans get a lot as well. But for the scholarship, I think recently I saw that they actually doubled their scholarship pool.
Okay.
I don't know why they did that
Okay.
or what happened, but I still think it's hard because it's only for like particular backgrounds, right? So yeah,
Got it. Got it. Yeah, I mean it's always difficult, and especially to get off from a wait list and get into a
yeah.
scholarship is always going to be sort of that difficult. Okay, so walk us through. You get in, right? You get that email. I'm sure you sort of had some sort of party or something. So what happened after that? What the process looks like after
I mean, there was no party, but like there's a lot. There's a huge checklist that they
that?
send you.
Mm-hmm.
So once you get in, you have to obviously accept, right? Within 2 days, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, you're saying like, immediately. So I was like, okay, I accept, and then immediately they add you to the INSEAD community.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you get your email count. You can see who are your classmates coming in. This and then they send you a huge checklist, which has things like you have to send them your transcript,
Mm-hmm.
fill out some forms. You have to pay the first installment within 1 month.
Right.
It's a smaller installment. You can even pay by credit card,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to pay that. And once you do that, like there's a continuous process. Like, all of that ends in like a week or two, right? The
Right.
paperwork, right? And once you get your email, I think you're pretty much set. And now the class starts on Jan 2nd or 3rd.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and in between, the thing about INSEAD I'm learning is like I feel like they've nailed the 1 year program really
Mm-hmm.
well. So they're already like sending you job openings, right?
Right.
Because if you go in January,
Mm-hmm.
you're doing the summer internship.
Right.
If you start in September, there's no summer internship.
Right.
So for me, there will be an internship, and they're sending me like opportunities. Especially if you're looking to go into finance, the opportunities come early, so you have
Okay.
to apply in October.
Wow.
Um,
Okay. So
yeah,
you started applying to these opportunities even now.
I have already applied to multiple places,
Wow.
uh, and right now they were sending opportunities for the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of New York investment banks
Mm-hmm.
are hiring like INSEAD people. So I applied to a few of those, and there are some other early internship opportunities with some consulting firms in the Southeast Asia region.
Okay.
Uh, so yeah, like the program has technically already started. Like if I'm applying for jobs, like it's pretty much happening. And also I joined some clubs. You can also start joining clubs.
Mm-hmm.
I think I joined the FinTech club recently.
Okay.
You can attend the events. There's a lot of webinars going around.
Okay.
Everything is online anyway, so like it makes it easy, right? And then from November, they start sending you the detailed curriculum courses,
Okay.
uh, your Singapore student pass, like things like that, right? Will start from November. They even assign you a career coach from November, so 2 months before the classes. So yeah, I mean the program actually starts way before the classes, I would say.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's actually quite interesting because not a lot of schools actually do that. Okay, so
yeah.
it's
I think
quite
the one
interesting.
year makes it, you have to do it, I guess. Yeah,
Yeah, it's barely even 1 year. Like it's a 10 months program, so it's like
yeah.
comes and it goes. It's in a blur as such. But there's a very important point that I want to touch upon here. So you were talking about these opportunities that they were sending your way, right? And in New York and sometimes in Southeast Asia and all. So my question is more related to Singapore, right? And the work environment in Singapore. So I'm currently working with a student. She's actually here. She's from Taiwan, right? And she's looking at applying to NUS and NTU primarily, and not NCR as of now. But for her also, it's important to understand how does the Singapore work environment sort of pan out, right? Are you actually getting opportunities there? Because I've heard that the visa situation is not that it's not that great for for professionals as such after you graduated from there. So can you shed some light if you have some knowledge about that?
So, I mean, from it is competitive, right?
Mhm.
So, I mean, I think everybody can acknowledge that it's not easy.
Mhm.
Uh, like if you take, the big cities in the world, London, Dubai, New York, Singapore, right? Uh, Probably Singapore is the hardest one to get jobs in, I would say.
Okay.
Dubai is probably the easiest,
Okay.
Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and then London is probably the second easiest, and then New York. Then I would say Singapore, right? Firstly, it's super competitive. Secondly, it's very small,
Mhm.
and then thirdly, I think there are opportunities probably more in consulting
Hmm.
or some big, like really big banks who might, sponsor you.
Right.
So it's like a similar situation to the US, but
Hmm.
maybe a bit more with a bit less opportunities, obviously, because the US is pretty big. So I think if you're looking to stay in Singapore, most likely consulting is probably like the number one option
Right.
for you to get sponsored, because they're usually pretty open to sponsoring. But I know for a fact, as one of my good friends works at McKinsey, uh, and her colleague is in McKinsey Singapore,
Hmm.
and she was telling me that Singapore is the only office in the world that has a closed door policy. So if
Okay.
you're looking to transfer from another office to Singapore, it's not possible,
Wow.
right? But the other way is possible.
It's possible.
Yeah. So like it's pretty competitive to get into Singapore. That I think that's the insight I have.
Got it.
But,
So,
but
you're
yeah.
talking about these other opportunities in US and all, but even that I think would be competitive if you're not really studying there as such, so you don't get the.
Oh yeah.
So, what
Yeah.
other opportunities are available? I mean, from INSEAD, let's say, are you looking at Middle East as probably the best opportunity that you have, the Southeast Asian region as well?
Mm, yeah, I think it depends where you want to go, right? Like finance, I would say London is number one.
Hmm.
A lot of INSEAD students do get London full-time offers,
Okay.
uh, because London has an easier visa policy, right?
Right.
Um, and secondly, it's also English speaking, which I think is a big factor.
Right.
Number two, I would say is the UAE,
Okay.
right? UAE is more attractive for a lot of INSEAD alumni because the salaries are much higher than London and Europe, right?
Right.
It's probably the highest in the world, to be honest, compared to US. Like it's on par with US.
US. Yes.
But obviously in the Middle East, there's no taxes, so that's your income, disposable income is pretty high.
Pretty well.
And now the GCC is pretty active in investments and things like that. So for me personally, I'm looking at Singapore as an option, but I understand it's hard. That's why I'm open to London. I'm open to Dubai, and also I'm open to Saudi Arabia because I'm familiar with the place. So I think even if you go to NUS,
Mhm.
NUS is a pretty good school. Like it's pretty
Yeah.
well known. I think you should also I don't know why. I don't think you should just fixate on Singapore too much, and should be open to more opportunities elsewhere. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. Perfect. So I think I have taken too much of your time, Usman. So I just have a couple of quick final, maybe one or two more questions, right? And then
Yes. Go ahead.
wrap it up. So my first question is essentially just a reflection on the entire journey, right? Is there anything that you would have done differently?
Mm, for the whole MBA process, or
The whole MBA process, let's say.
I would have started earlier, like for I would have started earlier for GMAT prep, I
Mhm.
think, and also I think I would have applied earlier, maximum by December, I would say, right?
Right. Because I think
So
for US we were really late. I mean, we applied in
yeah,
R3.
even for LBS, I
Yeah.
was really late.
Correct.
Actually, I got my decision for LBS less than 2 months before classes start. Like it's pretty late. Um, so yeah, I think those two. But it seems like your students are on track to
Yeah.
submit soon, right?
Definitely, definitely. Hopefully, some in R1 and then maybe in R2 as well. But yeah, I think it makes difference. Right, for INSEAD, we talked about how it made a difference to shift it from the last round of September intake to the first round of January intake. Even LBS, I think if we would have applied earlier, maybe it would have made some difference. I guess
Yeah,
to the
I think so.
that is for sure. And my final question to you is, Usman, what are you most excited about in INSEAD? Like, what are you looking forward to?
Um, what am I looking forward to? I think there's a lot. I mean, I saw the list of my classmates. So NCN has a really cool app. Actually, you can see all the profiles of people. surprisingly extremely diverse profiles. There are people coming from, Costa Rica, South America, like all kinds of places. I actually saw the list of incoming students for this September intake.
Okay.
That just started, right? And I mean, there was a lot of countries. I think like 50 plus. Obviously, India is like the number one
Mhm.
uh, in the batch, but I think there was a lot from France, from the U.S., from Saudi Arabia. There was a few, uh, but yeah, I think meeting those people is probably what I'm probably most looking forward to. And then living in Singapore sounds nice also.
Right. Have you started meeting these people informally yet? I mean, I'm sure there would be groups on WhatsApp or Telegram.
There are WhatsApp groups. All the student clubs have WhatsApp groups, actually. So I've started joining them. I haven't like formally met someone,
Okay.
but I've started looking around. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. Perfect. Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for doing this, Usman. Guys, if you have any questions, now is the time because I'm wrapping this up in like less than a minute. If anyone wants to come on stage and talk, let me know. I can do that. If you want to type in your question in the chat box, let me know, right? So that I can wait. But Usman, thank you for taking the time. I know we went like literally an hour when this was supposed to be like a 30-minute session. So thank you for
That's a
doing.
good sign. That's a good sign, right?
Yeah, but I was enjoying our talks. I think it was fun to understand the entire journey and
Yeah.
to sort of see where where you came from and how you sort of went through the entire journey and now finally into INSEAD this January. So great to sort of hear that. Perfect. I don't see any questions coming in, Usman. So thank you so much. Wishing you all the best. I think people are wishing you that as well.
Oh,
But
thank you. Thank you.
thank you so much for doing that, man. Take care and have a
Thank
great
you.
day.
All right. Good luck to you guys. See you. Bye.